to Isambard TV, and this is Ziemowit with the author, Phil Earle, and we're going to talk to him about his career.
Hello mate, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. What do you want to ask?
Well, just a quick question. How long does it usually take for you to finish writing a book?
It kind of depends on how long the book is. The books I've written for sort of teenagers tend to be about 60,000 words, roughly. I would try and write every day. I wrote those mostly on the bus to and from work, and I could often get like 1,000 words done a day on a good day. Some days were bad days and it might be 500 words. Generally, when I was writing 60,000 word novels, I tried to write a first draft in 6 months. I generally found if it was taking me longer than 6 months, then the story wasn't right, you know? But I kind of find if I'm writing properly and I'm writing the story that I really want to write, it kind of flows quite quickly. I don't write on the bus anymore because I work from home. And so now when I'm writing, I try and, when I'm writing a first draft, I try and write 500 words a day, 7 days a week. Because by the end of that week, I've got 3,500 words. And by the end of that month, I've got 10 or 12,000 words. And by the end of 3 months or 10 weeks, I should have a book done. So when I'm writing this slightly younger things like Demolition Dad, 3 months, writing 500 words every day.
So that's pretty interesting. So it varies. For example, with Heroic, you took longer.
Yep. I mean, interestingly, Heroic took me about 6 months. Saving Daisy, the first time I wrote that book, it ended up being something like 105,000 words. It was way too long, and it was way too miserable. And my editor, the challenge was my editor said, okay, you need to go away and lose 35,000 words from this book, which is an awful lot of chapters, you know?
Yeah.
But she was right. I went away and I did that work, and by the time it was finished, it was a better book for it. Yeah.
Okay. So where do you get all your ideas and information from?
Ideas come from everything and anything, really. I like eavesdropping on people's conversations. I like sitting on a bus and listening to the conversations that are going on around you. I like reading the newspaper. I like watching the telly. So, you know, some ideas from my books have come from newspapers, just reading an article, and I think, oh, there's something quite interesting in that story. So I'll nick it, I'll take that idea and twist it and make it slightly different and try and repeat it in my story. You know, I think we're just surrounded by stories, really, all the time. You know, there's things going on. And I'm terrible with my phone. I look at my phone all the time. And actually, if you put your phone down for 5 minutes, you can see so many stories waiting for you to tell. Yeah.
So that's really interesting, because some authors just say that they think of it in a dream or something.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing about writing. Every writer works differently. Every writer gets their ideas from different places. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing that kind of makes it interesting, I think.
Was it hard getting your first book published?
Yes. I was writing on and off about 10 years before I got anywhere. I worked on a book for a long time. I worked on a book for about 5 years, wrote it and rewrote it maybe half a dozen times. A friend of mine illustrated it. He must have drawn up 50, 60 different pictures. And we sent it to agents and we sent it to publishers all around the UK, and every single one came back and said the same thing. And they said, oh my goodness, you're a terrible writer. Stop writing. Take up knitting. Do something else with your life. You'll never be a writer. But that's part of the process, you know. It's like if you want to be a top-class sportsman, you have to practice your craft, you know. You have to work on your fitness and your skills, and it takes time. And it's the same with writing, I think. If you want to be a great writer, unless you're just annoyingly talented, then you have to take time. You have to build up your skills. So it was like an apprenticeship, really. That first 10 years was me learning how to do it. So I don't regret that. It's all part of the process.
So it's like when you fall down, pick yourself up and carry on.
Oh, you have to have thick skin to be a writer. You know, because even when you get a book published, there's nothing to stop people reviewing that book and saying, oh, this is terrible. You know, why is this book being published? So you kind of have to get used to that, you know. That's part of it. I don't mind.
What are the pros and cons of your job?
I guess one of the cons, is working on your own. When you're writing, unless you write as part of a team, it's you on your own with a laptop or a pen and a piece of paper. And it can take months or years to write a book, so it's quite isolating sometimes. It's just you, which is why things like Twitter are so good, because you can get chatting to other authors and you don't feel like you're quite so much on your own with it. The pros are I get to speak in schools a lot. I get paid for writing down ridiculous nonsense that goes on in my head, you know, which is a real benefit. You know, it's to get paid to do something that you love doing is a bit of a joy. You know, I feel desperately lucky. You don't kind of ever want it to end, you know. that's kind of the biggest fear, I guess, that one day someone's going to say to you, "Now that's it. Now, Phil, your time's up. Stop writing." Because I think I'd go a bit mental if I had to do that.
Yeah. So what's your favourite book what was your favourite book as a child, and what's your favourite book now?
As a kid, it's hard to say in some ways, because I didn't really read. You know, I was a terrible reader as a young person, and I'm still, in some ways, what I'd class a reluctant reader now. I don't tend to read books for adults now. I tend to read books for children and young people, because for me, they're the best stories, you know. I want to be taken on an adventure when I read. I read a lot of comics as a kid. I loved a lot of the DC stuff. Read a lot of Batman. I read a lot of Daredevil. There's a graphic novel called Mouse, Maus by Art Spiegelman, and that was a book that really changed things for me, because it was a graphic novel retelling of the way of the Holocaust, of the way the Jewish people were treated by the Germans, by the Nazis in the Second World War, and that was a book that kind of turned me on my head, you know. So I read a lot of graphic novels. The only novels I can remember reading is things like Flat Stanley by Jeff Brown, that was, you know, that was quite a young book, but didn't really read. I was terrible at it, you know. Comics all the way.
Same here. DC is the best.
Okay, who's your favourite DC hero?
Batman has to be Batman.
Yeah. Have you read Death in the Family?
Got halfway through it.
Okay.
Black Mirror is good. And
Yeah.
Joke.
Good. Yeah, Killing Joke is a beauty. Yeah, I'd like them to make a film of Killing Joke. I think that'd be awesome. Oh, you have good taste, my friend.
Yeah. So did you always aspire to be an author as a child?
No, didn't want to. I didn't read, so I had no dreams to write at all. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play for Hull City. That's how sad my life was. But I was too fat. Wasn't good enough. Didn't have the skills, you know. And so I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. I tried a few different things, and nothing seemed to sort of pay off at first. And it was only really getting a job in a bookshop and starting to read kids' books in my mid-20s that kind of made me think, you know, this is what I'd kind of like to do with my life. So I guess I came to it quite late, or later than some people do anyway. Yeah.
So what would you say, in your opinion, makes a good author?
Oh man, I guess someone who's full of stories. You know, I think if you want to be a writer, you've got to be bursting full of stories, and you've got to want to do something different with that story. There's no point telling a story that people have told 100 times before. You've got to make it yours. You've got to own it. You've got to make it a bit more different and more exciting than the way it's been told before. So someone that's full of ideas, and someone who's prepared to work hard. I think that's what makes for a good author. You can't expect the first thing that you write to be the thing that makes you famous. You know, you've got to work at it. You've got to work at your craft. You've got to learn how to write. So someone who's not afraid to roll their sleeves up. And also, I think a lot of great authors are really are prepared to go out and meet their readers as well. You know, people like Jacqueline Wilson or Mallory Blackman, you know, the great authors like that, they've spent years, decades going out into schools, into libraries, into shops and meeting their readers. And that's one of the things that makes for a great author, people that are really prepared to engage with the people that they write for. Yeah.
Well, that concludes my questions. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, mate. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.